Hello, I'm Arthel Neville, and you are in the strategy room. Well, prayers have been pouring in from across the country for the victims in the deadly San Bernardino, California Christmas party shootings on Wednesday. GOP candidates tweeting their condolences, from Ted Cruz writing, "Our prayers are with the victims, their families, and the first responders in San Bernardino who willingly go into harm's way to save others," to Jeb Bush praying for the victims, their families, and the San Bernardino first responders in the wake of this tragic shooting. And Mike Huckabee praying for those impacted by the shootings in California today. But this cover story in the New York Daily News questions whether prayer is the answer to stop the killings. The headline reads, "God isn't fixing this." Joining me now with analysis are Douglas Smith in D.C. and Robert O'Brien in L.A., and I want to welcome both of you. Okay, and
Good
Robert,
to be with you, Arthel.
Absolutely, thank you. Robert, let me start with you. Let me get your take. What do you make of this headline?
Well, I can tell you my prayers and the prayers of my family have gone out to the victims and to their families. This is an incredibly tragic situation. It's what appears to be a terrorist attack. Maybe the headline writer for the New York Daily News doesn't understand it, but there are many people in this country who are comforted and inspired by prayers and their hope in God in a situation like this. So, you know, certainly our condolences and our sympathy and our prayers and thoughts are with the family and the victims, and we're grateful, like the presidential candidates, for those policemen and women and firemen and women who are willing to charge into the breach and save people and defend us. So I think the tweets were very appropriate, and I'm a little disappointed in the headline writer.
And Doug, what was your reaction when you saw the headline?
Well, look, I think the headline is slightly crass, but I think it's spot on. You know, I think all these Republican candidates running who are aspiring to raise the mantle of Ronald Reagan should read back in 1991 when Ronald Reagan wrote his famous op-ed in the New York Times calling for greater gun control. I think we're all in agreement that when a tragedy happens, we all send our prayers to the families. But I think these candidates need to do more. I mean, praying isn't enough. I mean, they need to show action. They need to show plans. They need to get involved and offer solutions.
Well, let me stay with you there, Doug.
Of course we're all going to offer our condolences.
I heard the last thing you said. Let me stay with you there. What do you think is the best, most effective message from politicians in times like these?
Look, I think without a doubt, I mean, you know, the president's role is always to convalesce, bring the American people together. But I think as these candidates are running, if one of the Republican candidates really trying to break out and to show their leadership would come out and not say something, oh, ban guns. Obviously, we're not going to ban guns. I mean, that's ridiculous. But come out with concentrated plans on how to work better. How are we going to better train and fund our state and local law enforcement? Because that's where the buck really stops. How are we going to provide better education funding to, you know, the average citizens out there? How do we, you know, I have a daughter in school. I want to know that the schools are getting the kind of training they need to better prevent these things. You know, how are we going to create more funding for mental health? I think when these actions happen, there is a rush of judgment. The nerves are raw from what we saw in Paris. But I think the rush to call everything a terrorist act right now is going too far. What we need to do is force all of us to think, you know, how do we better control these situations?
Okay.
You know, how do we take the guns off the streets that are causing these crimes, but do it in a...
Yeah, let me jump in only because I want to make sure that Robert's included in the conversation. Before I get back to you, Robert, let me take a look at the tweets from Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton. Quote, "I refuse to accept this as normal. We must take action to stop gun violence now." So what do you think about Mrs. Clinton's tweets, Robert?
Well, I think what's been shocking is that the Democrats have immediately moved to politicize this event and call for more gun control. Guess who likes gun control? Terrorists. Paris has the strictest gun control in the world, and people were slaughtered. California has the strictest gun control, or among the strictest gun control laws with New York in America. Had this shooting taken place in Texas or Utah, there's a chance that a law-abiding American citizen who had the right to carry a weapon might have been able to fire back and save their coworkers or save their friends. So to see the Democrats first try and deny that this is a terrorist event. We have a self-identified on Twitter Sunni Muslim who's traveled to the Arabian Peninsula.
Don't be ridiculous.
And who had a bomb-making factory at his home, had tactical gear, and launched what's a terrorist attack, and to have Democrats call for gun control and talk about workplace violence, just like they did in response to Major Hassan at Fort Hood, who killed a bunch of American soldiers, shouting Allah Akbar.
Robert,
I mean, it's the Democrats that are politicizing this event.
Let me jump in because I'm tight on time here, and I have to give Doug the last word since I started with you. As we both know, at this time, as we were conducting this particular segment, the authorities out there in California have not labeled this, so we just want to be careful. Doug, let me finish with you saying that since the subject of gun control is on the table, quickly, what's next for gun control, in your opinion?
Look, let me just emphasize that doing nothing and simply offering prayers is not enough. So I actually applaud the Democrats to have the courage to come out there and call it what it is. It's senseless violence. And what we need to do is think through it. How do we stem this senseless violence in our society? And it's not an easy fix. It's not as simple as let's pass gun control. It's a complex discussion. But rather than offering just empty platitudes of prayer, let's be aggressive. Let's get out there and talk about this more. How do we protect our society? How do we protect our children in schools, our coworkers?
Yeah. Well, just for the record, Doug, you just mentioned that Democrats referred to this as senseless violence. I think Republicans did as well. And quite frankly, we're all Americans, and that should be the focus. Doug and Robert, I have to leave it there. For more on this developing story, go to FoxNews.com. I'm Arthel, Neville. Thanks so much for watching.